the Civil Rights Movement by Faith Harris and Chloe Gibson. Introduction of World War II. World War II, which occurred 1939 to 1945, was a global conflict involving major world powers including the United States fighting against Axis forces led by Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, and Fascist Italy. The war reshaped political and social structures worldwide, including in the U.S., where it sparked economic growth and social change. The Civil Rights Movement occurred during 1950s and 1960s, was a struggle for racial equality in the U.S., aiming to end segregation and discrimination against African Americans. It led to landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964. During World War II, African Americans played a crucial role both in combat and on the home front. Over 1 million black men and women served in the U.S. military, despite facing segregation and discrimination. Black soldiers' roles. African Americans served in various capacities, including in combat, logistics, and support roles. One of the most famous groups was the Tuskegee Airmen, an all-black squadron of fighter pilots who proved their skill and bravery by escorting bombers on dangerous missions in Europe. Their success helped challenge racist beliefs about black soldiers' capabilities. The Double V Campaign. The Double V Campaign was a movement led by black newspapers advocating for victory against fascism abroad and racism at home. African Americans saw the hypocrisy of fighting for democracy overseas while being denied basic rights in the U.S. The campaign fueled demands for civil rights, pushing for an end to segregation and discrimination. Racial discrimination in the military and at home. Despite their contributions, black soldiers were often assigned to segregated units and given menial jobs. Many were denied combat roles and had to serve under white officers. At home, black veterans returning from war still faced racism, including violence and segregation, which led to growing frustrations and increased activism. Impact. World War II was a turning point for African Americans, laying the foundation for the civil rights movement by exposing racial injustices and inspiring a stronger push for equality. After World War II, black veterans returned home demanding the rights and freedoms they had fought for abroad, only to face continued racism and segregation. Their activism helped push for early desegregation efforts, such as Executive Order 9981, which ended segregation in the U.S. military in 1948. Leaders like A. Philip Randolph and Thurgood Marshall, along with organizations like the NAACP and CORE, played key roles in challenging discrimination through protests and legal battles. These post-war struggles laid the foundation for the civil rights movement, inspiring a nationwide push for racial equality in the decades that followed.
Visual timeline. Major events from World War II to the Civil Rights Movement. 1941. U.S. enters World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor. 1942. The Tuskegee Airmen began combat missions providing black pilots skill and bravery. 1943. Race riots erupt in cities like Detroit, highlighting racial tensions at home. 1945. World War II ends. Black veterans return home demanding equality. 1947. Jackie Robinson breaks Major League Baseball's colors barrier. 1948. President Harry Truman issues Executive Order 9981, desegregating the U.S. military. 1954. Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court decision declares school segregation unconstitutional. 1955. Montgomery bus boycotts begin after Rosa Parks' arrest, launching Martin Luther King Jr. as a civil rights leader. 1957. The Little Rock Nine integrate Central High School in Arkansas, facing National Guard resistance. 1960. The Green Boro sits in, spark a wave of nonviolent protests against segregation. 1963. March on Washington takes place. Martin Luther King Jr. delivers his I Have a Dream speech. 1964. Civil Rights Act of 1964 is passed, outlawing segregation and discrimination. Conclusion. The fight for civil rights from World War II through the 1960s highlight key themes of equality, activism, and government action. Black soldiers' service in the war exposed the contradiction of fighting for democracy abroad while facing racism at home, fueling demands for justice. The Double V campaign and post-war activism led to landmark changes, such as an executive order of 9981 desegregation, the military and Brown v. Board of Education challenging segregation. The movement strategies, legal challenge, nonviolent protests, and grassroots organizing remain influential today. Modern civil rights issues, including racial justice, police reform, and voting rights, reflect these past struggles. The fight against systematic racism continues through the movements like Black Lives Matter, echoing the calls for justice from the 1950s and 1960s. Just as civil rights activists used the courts and protests to push for change, today's activists leverage social media and policy advocacy to address racial disparities in education, employment, and the criminal justice system. The legacy of World War II era activism lives on in ongoing efforts to achieve full racial equality. Thank you.